This is from the 2021 exam. It's a 2D array problem called ArrayResizer. In part A, we are asked to write this method right here. Notice it's static, so that means we're not going to be using objects. Our return type is going to be a Boolean, is a non-zero row. We're going to be passing in a 2D matrix of integers and a row. And we want to return true if every single column in that row is non-zero, and return false otherwise. So here they gave us a kind of an example to look at. So here is your 2D array. They're passing an array and 0th row, and you see that's going to return false because we found a 0 in there. If I look at that same matrix and look at row 1, that's going to return true because they're all non-zero. So once we fix our row, we need to traverse our columns. As soon as we find a 0 in the column, we return false. If we make it through every single column without finding a 0, then you return true. So we're traversing our columns. We're looking for when our 2D array, or if our 2D array is equal to 0 at R and C. If it is, return false, because that row is definitely not all non-zero, because you found one that was 0. If you make it through all the columns, return false. So this was worth 3 points. You got 1 for traversing the columns with no error bounds, 1 for checking your matrix against 0, and 1 for returning true only when you're supposed to. Part B of the problem is definitely a little bit more involved. So what happens here is we're giving a 2D array, again a matrix, and we're asked to make it smaller or to resize it. So in this process, we see here it's got a 0th row, a 0 in the row. That one does not get copied over to the new matrix. This row right here are all non-zero, so we're going to copy that over. This one contains a 0, so it doesn't get copied over. No zeros, so it does get copied over. So what we're going to do is write the array 2D, resize, and return that new array. Now somewhere, which I don't see it, they give us another helper method. Let me see if I can find that. Should be 4. If you scroll down to the bottom of this page where we were talking about what we need to write, they have some other methods for us. So in part 1, or part A, we wrote is non-zero row, and that determined if that row had a 0 or not. They've also provided this other method, number of non-zero rows. So if you give in the matrix, it'll tell you how many number non-zero rows. So we're going to use this to determine how many rows in our new matrix. Then we're going to have to traverse the columns. When we're on our row 0, before we traverse the columns, we're going to ask ourselves, is it a non-zero row? If it's a non-zero row, then we will copy it over, and we'll increment both R's. There'll be an R on the reduced matrix and an R on the larger matrix. So this is what it would look like. Oops. So we're writing the ArrayResizer method. So the first thing, we have to determine how many non-zero rows. So if this was my matrix over here, and you see that this has got 2 rows that contain 0. So when I call number of non-zero rows on this matrix, it would give us a 2. So we first have to call that. Now we have to make our new matrix the correct size. So the new matrix is now going to have that new row total that we just calculated, but our columns are going to be the same. The next thing we're going to have to keep track of is the R value on this matrix. We'll traverse a 2D array using this row and this column, but our rows here are going to be different, so we're not going to exactly copy things over. If it's row 0 on 1, does not mean it's going to be row 0 on the second one. So we start traversing the rows. So once we pick up a row, we're going to call the method we wrote in part A if it's a non-zero row. So if this returns true, then we enter in traversing the columns. This means there is not a 0 in there. So if there's not a 0, you copy everything over, but then you're going to have to increment the row of the smaller matrix, and then you'll go back up, and then you'll do the second row and do the same thing. At the very end, you're going to return the new matrix. So the point allocation for this one, you get 1 point for determining, if you made a call to number of non-zero rows, so you need to make a call to this and make a call to is non-zero row. So both of these methods need to be called. If they are somewhere in there, you're going to get 1 point. The next one identifies the rows with no zeros. So you're going to have to do some type of an if. Did you do an if to check if that row contained all non-zeros? The next one is declaring the appropriate size 2D array. Next thing is we're going to traverse all the appropriate things here and here in that bigger matrix. That'll earn you a point. And then the next one compares everything and copies only what you want it should. So here is that correct copying. And there's the point allocation for that one.